Hey everybody, it's P here, and alright, fine. I know a lot of you guys wanted to see the list, so here it is, my Blue Red Prison list that I ran in this week's 3-mana tournament. But before we get started, do you want to watch me play all these interesting decks? Well, I actually stream on Twitch every Tuesday through Thursday at 7 o'clock EST, so link will be that down in the description below. But without further ado, let's jump into the deck. So, Blue Red Prison. Now, before we actually jump into first, here's the list. Obviously, if you just want the list, here it is. Link will be in the description. But I want to give some context. Why Blue Red? And I think that's a meta call. Prison Frieza is unquestionably a control deck. And all control decks need to be able to decide, need to change and morph based around the meta. No control deck will look the same between one meta to another. Outside of like Invoker, but I'd argue Invoker is more of a combo deck than a control deck. With that context, we need to decide, does Mono Red provide us the tools we need to be able to get to the late game, get to our win cons? In this meta right now, I think Red by itself doesn't have those tools. We're seeing a lot of 25k, 30k, really huge beaters that Red just can't touch. Red removal gives minus 15, minus 20k, and deal really well with swarmy strategies. But go big strategies, you find a lot of issues. And in that world, I think adding in the blue does a lot for you. You're able to bounce cards back to their opponent's hand, you're able to get some value by drawing cards, and the removal hits bigger things. And here we ought to go with blue as opposed to like yellow, let's say, or green, because based on what Invoker has given us, we just have so many more tools in blue-red to be able to form together a control strategy. That said though, if the meta ever shifted back to having a swarmy, lot of mini attacker type of strategies, I think going mono red provides you just enough of the tooling to be able to get to the late game. It just so happens that the state of the world of the meta is right now, I think the blue splash helps a lot. So we'll talk about the leader first. So here we have Frieza. And the hardest part about this deck is that you can't add battle cards with an age cost of 3 or less in your deck. That means even if we're running Unisons, we can't run Yamchas. We can't use silver bullets. We can't use super combos. And that hurts a lot. That makes the deck building significantly tougher. Clearly them trying to lock your deck to say this is a control deck. Activate main. Once per turn, you get to look at the top 5 cards of your deck and take a red extra card, add it to your hand, and then shuffle your deck. This is pretty huge because there's no color restrictions. It's not monocolor, which means if ever you decide to do splash your leader into any other color, at least those multicolor extra cards will be live for you to be able to grab. Finally, on Awaken at 4 or less, you draw 2 cards. Because we're in red, because you're a control deck, you're going to be hurting for... In the earlier parts of the game, in the earlier designs of the game, you'd be hurting for card advantage more. Now with where the game's at and how much card advantage we accrue naturally, I think untapping energy would be more useful in a control deck. But nevertheless, we have draw. And then on the Awaken side, we have draw just flat out. And then auto, when this card's being attacked, you can pitch one of your Frieza's army cards and negate the attack, and you can do that once per turn. Super powerful. It's great to have extra ability. Negate on an auto is huge. Let's say your opponent's trying to bait out a negate so that they could use the golden ape on you. You don't have to go there. You just pitch a Frieza's army and there you go. You still negated a massive attack without opening up that window for counterplays or anything cheeky. Or if you did negate the attack and they countered your negate, you can still proceed to go auto negate anyways. It's got some great versatility in there to prevent your opponent from doing anything too cheesy. And it is nice that you get your value without having to attack. Lends itself well to the control aspects. It means you don't have to go ahead and give your opponent more hand advantage to deal with you to be able to start getting your draw. So then we go into the blue-red cards. And I made sure to choose blue-red cards that really only took 1 blue energy. Basically the way we want to go is on turn 1, if it doesn't kill us, we are going to charge a blue-red, and that's all the blue we need to charge for the entire game. And then every turn, once on our opponent's turn, we use them for value. Here we have 1 Instinctive Reprisal, gives minus 10k to 2 things. Now you do have this in red already all by itself, but the ability here to hit the leader is nice considering Gohan is a card in the format. It's an additional thing that procs the leader. I think that's helpful in a number of situations, but it's probably the easiest one to charge right off the bat. Then we're running a couple of combination attacks. Again, we want to deal with big things that are annoying. 5 drops or less, bounce them back to hand, and we get an energy back. And red is super energy hungry. So any cards that we can run that dual purpose as removal as well as refreshments on our energy can be absolutely massive. Tyranny's cost, we can't run draw apes. Draw ape is a 2 cost. We can only run 3 costs. And this is another reason to go into blue red. At least here we have a way of mitigating against hand control, because otherwise this deck absolutely folds to hand control. It's not even close. 2 Sleepy Boy techniques. Again, I can unconditionally bounce anything, and then I get 2 cards out of it. It's a mixture of making sure my hand stays big, and it allows me to hit things that I usually can't hit with my red removal. And finally, a couple of Emperor's Death Beam. We don't really have interaction in the combo step. The deck doesn't have a lot of combo because you're running mostly extra cards. So to mitigate for that, we go ahead and we run a couple of Death Beams. It means that we can sneak in a big prevention damage on our opponent and might be able to swing the game on our way if they commit too much to it without seeing it coming. Bonus that you might be able to use is Activate Main to get an extra card off top of your deck. The likelihood, not really. We're running like 9 multicolored cards, so the odds are not that likely, but hey, it's something that could happen. So you got that little bonus there. Then we have the red core defensive cards, a couple of Violent Rays, stops really big decks, because you can recur your red cards based on a couple of cards that we're running later on. I think the 2 is fine. Obviously, like I said, control is super meta dependent. If your meta is huge of dark Brolys and big things like Broly swap or whatever, by all means run more Violent Rays. We're running 4 after image techniques. Sparking negates are a necessity. There are too many situations where you're stuck defending and still have to end up pulling back on defenses. So with that, we end up having to just commit to 4 sparking. They give us options when we're tapped out, which is absolutely massive. Then we got a couple of Is That All You Got? Hits 2 things for minus 15k. The minus 15 is actually pretty relevant. Hits a lot of bodies that regularly things like After Image Technique don't. But I've been starting to cut these down. Again, the meta doesn't call for it too much. At the end of the day, it only really ends up hitting things like a couple of Babuni tokens or a couple of annoying blockers. So it's there to keep the board clean. You know, the biggest thing about Red's defensive options is that Red is a board control defense type of color. So cards like these help mitigate a lot, but I could see these shifting to, you know, the Violent Rays if we feel like we need extra. Definitely one of the negates that we can pivot into using on something else. Of course, we run 4 topos. We can't run battle cards that cost 3 or less. So we need to max out on our ability to be able to play these negates or play control cards that also allow us to actually establish board presence. On 2 energy, Topo Comes Live is huge. And it's not just the fact that it's a floodgate. It's the fact that it's a floodgate that gives us a battle card. It allows us to be able to push towards a win con, which this deck already struggles with a little bit. And then finally, 4 Planet Vegeta's Final Moments. I thought this card was bad. I'm not gonna lie, it got revealed and I thought it was super bad. Turns out it's super useful. I love this card. Negate the attack, and if your leader card is Red Frieza BR card, choose all of you and your opponent's leader cards and battle cards, giving everything minus 10k. Now, it might suck that you're giving your own leader minus 10k, but everything gets minus 10k, which really nullifies the board. It cleans up a lot of little weenies, and if you chain multiple of these, you can just straight up kill cards, which is absolutely amazing. And it combos well with the Unison that we're running afterwards. Finally, Frieza's Army. Our leader allows us to negate by pitching Frieza's Army. We want to run a couple. Loyal Kikono allows us to get a red extra card back from our drop when we pick it when we combo with it. That's super useful utility. And then we're running 1 Quickshift Berry Blue. This is more of a card that I used to run when I was running the Kaioken version of the deck because it's a combo deck that you don't want the Kaiokens in your hand. But at the end of the day, I figured having 1 helps us mitigate in case we have a bunch of dead draws. If we're in a situation where our hand is full of Unisons, we are going to die. So Quickshift Berry Blue is a 10k combo that also allows us to be and extend our plays. Then there's the board control aspects. Like I said, red is a board control color. First thing, prevention. Let's prevent our opponent from being able to play things. So we run a couple of Live to Fight Another Days. If our opponent tries to play a 20k or less for the turn, they have to drop 3 cards. Absolutely massive. SSVG Exploiting Weakness. Counterplay. Neg the entire board, give ourselves a beam. Super powerful, great for counterplaying our opponents, and great for baiting out counterplays actually. And finally, 1 Max Power Kamehameha. Again, there's a lot of things we don't hit. This is a negate that we can keep on recurring if that's the type of game it's going to be. Otherwise, it allows us to deal with a big threat that none of our removal is able to deal with. Then there's Beans. We run 2 of the new Bean, super powerful, deals with a lot of decks, but doesn't deal with everything. Because we're in blue, how about we split the difference, go 2 regular Beans, 2 red Beans. Then we have the flexibility of having more energy if we really need it, as well as the benefit of having a removal in the form of the red one if that's what we're looking for instead. Then there's the Unisons. I'm running 4 of the Gotenks. Mind you, this deck is different from the one I actually played. There were some cards I was missing, and after that tournament, I actually felt the need to optimize it a little bit. That Frieza's negate that gives minus 10k to everything is probably one of the most clutchest cards in the deck. So I figured, you know what, as much as Frost is nice, because I was running Frost before. He's a 2-drop blocker that +1s allows you to look at top 5 or top 4 and take a mono red. Super useful, but in the end it turns out that you're so much better off just making sure that your leader stays at 10k or 15k whenever using that neg, Because Gotenks' ability to give your leader plus 10k isn't once per turn, it means you can keep chaining those negates and your leader's going to stay healthy, which is absolutely massive. It makes such a big difference in matchup. It effectively means that against your opponent's already established board, you have a double bean every single time you use it, which is absolutely massive. And I actually wish I was running this card instead going into future games. It's super powerful, super relevant. And then you get the bonus that you can either take a life if you want to. You probably never want to. I don't know what situation the deck wants to, but hey, it could actually, there is a situation where we do run the SCR. So this allows you to go down to 2 life on your own terms to then be able to SCR your opponent. Also, the -2 lets you look at your opponent's hand, take out some new, really annoying cards. That's just extra beans bonus on there. Then we're running 2 Jirens. The deck has trouble closing. I'm not gonna lie. Jiren is another thing that one provides us board control, but also is a closer. It's a huge double striker, and it also does barrier removal if that's what we need. So I run a couple just as that additional flex spot. He's hard to deal with, and we want hard to deal with things because we can't commit too many slots to things that are easy to deal with because otherwise we'll just lose. Which goes into our closers. How are we closing out the game? Like I said, the SCR, if we're at 2 life, comes out for 5, wipes the board, so at least we get that tempo swing back, and then looks at our opponent's hands and we're able to rip out a negate to go for the win. And if that's not the situation we're in, we can at least remove their next threat so that we don't die next turn. I'm running 2 Saiyan Onslaught Keflas. This is a really old school card. It's not the best card, I'm not gonna lie. But we need something to deal with blue. This deck loses hard, really hard to blue because God Seal is really powerful, the removal is really powerful. It's a hard deck to deal with. This is a huge dual attacking deflect that gives us a lot of card advantage, and our opponent, outside of hard negating it, probably won't be able to combo out of it. It's not the best card, I'm not gonna lie, and paying 5 in this deck hurts a lot. But against blue, you're probably gonna be in a position where if you threaten them with a threat, you can probably survive the following turn, giving you're at like 6 energy, let's say. It's not perfect, our matchup isn't amazing, but it's just one of those cards I decided to include just to hopefully get us there. Finally, Fushia and Mystery. Basically, we've gone to the late game, we have some kind of board, and we just need a final shotgun to say, I'm gonna turn off everything you're doing and I'm gonna go and kill you. Fu's the best at doing that, especially in a deck where we're going to be filling up our drop a lot because we're constantly negating. This is one of those decks that very easily can end up with a lot of cards and drop. That's not an issue. And finally, the limitations. We can't run super combos, and that is by far the thing that hurts the deck the most. Not being able to run the free counterplays with our Unisons hurts. Don't get me wrong, but the biggest thing that hurts is 100% Kaba's Awake, not being able to run super combos. It makes deck building really tough. It removes a lot of potential options that the deck can run. So we have to mitigate that by running this card. Oftentimes, it's basically a 10k combo, but not all the time, which really sucks. So it's more of like a necessary evil. But at least we're able to search it out from the top of our deck using our Unawakened Leader side, so there's that benefit. And using Kikono, we can recur it so we can set up a play where we Kaba's Awakening, Kikono for 10k, get back to Kaba's Awakening, do it again. At least there's that you can do. And that's the deck list. Honestly, super spicy, a lot of fun. I love pulling out Prison Frieza, and there's so many ways you could go about it. I went blue red for this tournament, but like I said, if you're in a meta where mono red can do just fine based on what you're gonna see, and if your removal hits what they're going to do, then by all means, go ahead and play mono red. It can work super well, and it opens up a ton of slots for you to actually have a more consistent close. Closing is way easier if you're mono red, but defensively right now, I think with the meta we're in, the blue splash gives you that nice variety of options as well as card draw to mitigate what we see in the meta right now. And that's Blue Red Prison. What do you guys think of that? Do you like it? Do you think it's spicy? Do you think the splash is really dumb? Let me know in the comments down below. And again, of course, you want to watch my streams where I actually get to play these decks, then those links will be in the description. If you guys like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you dislike the deck, hey, thumbs down works too. And if you want to catch more of my videos, subscription is there down below. And with that, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Ciao.